Welcome to Tales from SYL Ranch, now streaming live to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, because the Facebook gods have decided that it's okay for me to do streaming again. They've taken me out of my timeout, and I am Bill Stone. Tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we will have the weekly current Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics for where I live, and we'll talk about how journalists are now calling for certain rights of the non-vaccinated to be stripped of them. And, of course, also private citizens are now calling for non-vaccinated persons to be put in detention centers. Pardon me, forgot to put this sucker on, put it on, oops, didn't get, do not disturb. Anyway, we've got some very dark things happening. And we'll talk about basically anything else that you might want to happen to talk about. As I mentioned, Facebook has taken me out of my timeout. Yoo-hoo! I'm not timeout, and I'm not in a timeout anymore. I didn't even know why I got into a timeout. So I am streaming on Facebook again. It is, of course, a live stream, so you're free to talk with me about anything else that you might want to talk to me about in chat. You can ask me any question, whether it's political, social, the virus whose name I can't mention, without risking the video being banned on the YouTube side. You can talk about United States Civil War II, or things pertaining to science fiction, fantasies, horrors, superheroes, and other related genres, which, much as I do the politics, I would way prefer to be doing that stuff. I will happily answer every single viewer that I possibly can, in as truthfully as much in detail as I possibly can. There are some personal subjects that I won't discuss, but pretty much anything else is fair game. I will get to as many of my viewers as humanly possible, but you have to understand that this time around, it may be a shorter stream. That is because a couple of weeks ago, after my Thursday stream, I think it was the weekend after, I did something. I think I know what it was. I didn't think it would hurt me, but it really fracked up my sciatic nerve. If you've ever had problems with the sciatic nerve, and I have a couple of times, because I got arthritis in my lower back, which compounds the problem. But if you ever have a sciatic nerve, in me, it's pain that goes from my lower back all the way down part of my leg, and it's so painful. It's just a sharp, searing pain when you try to do anything physically, like standing up, sitting in a chair, which is why I did not have a stream last week. The notion of sitting myself down in a chair was just, oh God, no, I can't. So I didn't do that last week, and I apologize about that. I did put some stuff up on my second channel, Details from SYL Ranch Darkroom, which mostly there I'm putting up stuff like weekly I'm putting up the Superman cartoons, the Fleischer Superman cartoons from the 1940s, upscaled generally to 1440p QHD. And at 48 frames per second, which is very, very interesting stuff. I also have some other things that I'm uploading. I put a few of them up last week in lieu of having my live stream. But that's what you're going to find over there, as opposed to me talking and yammering about politics and other stuff. Real quick, I neglected to pop out my chat so that I can see what y'all are saying on the YouTube side. And I'll take it to live chat. Marshall Presnell says, beware the jackalope of Dune, break a leg. Thank you very much. As I say, it just depends how long I'll be in this damn chair. And Dalton Brazier says, hurrah, hello. Yes, thank you very much. Again, it's not so bad right now, so we'll see how it goes. But I don't want to exacerbate the problem and be in it too damn long. So now to answer the question that nobody asked, what is the current weekly Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics for where I live? As always, I sourced this with the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Health Department website. There is a link to it in my description box, even if you're not particularly interested in what our stats look like. It's a very interesting website, very, very informative. If you want to see where they've done it right, in terms of having, giving out information, you could go there. It's very useful. Some of my statistics, however, are not the same as Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department because I am using a more accurate count of the county's population. What they have done, the Lincoln Lancaster County, they have lowballed it to make our stats look better. Dalton Brazier says, is there a special chair that would be good for this type of pain? I don't know. The lower back arthritis is troubling most of the time anyway. I got the chair that I have because it is generally more comfortable. And I have a rolled up towel behind where my lower back is, and it's causing my spine to be a different way. That should be better for this, so we'll see how long it works. The total Lincoln and Lancaster County population is at roughly 324,216. The number of deaths of the virus in Lancaster County is up to 242, which is up 2 from 2 weeks ago. That's not bad. An average of 1 per week. We're leveling off to where that's flat. Obviously, we want to have no deaths, and that'll come eventually. But in a populated area of over 324,000, that ain't bad. I also do like to do a comparison. The number of people who died of heart disease here in 2019 alone was 485, which means, of course, that over the entire history of this pandemic, more than 2.5 years, coming up 2 3/4, the number of people who actually died of the virus remains less than half of the number who died of heart disease in only 1 year in 2019. So I would have to say, if the virus is a pandemic in Lancaster County, then heart disease is an ongoing health disaster. The total number of confirmed cases in Lancaster County is now up to 32,156, which is up 446 from 2 weeks ago. That represents a spike. Not a horrible spike because most of them are recovering, but it's a spike. We had been down to, I think it was 40 new cases before that, and 2 weeks ago it spiked upwards with about this number of cases as well. So that's not a good thing. We would like to see that continuing to spike down. Hopefully it will go down as time goes on. That may be a result of some of the variants of the virus. We have some of those here. Unfortunately, I can't get accurate statistics for what those are. Lincoln, Lancaster County does not break them down. I would be very interested to see that, but they don't show it. The number of individuals who have been tested in Lincoln, Lancaster County is now at 195,360, more than half the county's population. That's up 2.272% from 2 weeks ago. The percentage of people that have been tested, it's 60.256%. The number of positive cases that are classified as recovered is now at 31,054, which is up a nice whopping 2,052 from last week. I think that's the largest increase of people that we've seen that are classified as recovered. The problem is, I don't really know what that classification means. Given that there are only 242 deaths, when you run the math, that means there's 860 people who are in some kind of Schrodinger's cat-style limbo as both dead and simultaneously not dead. But however, it is 335 more people from 2 weeks ago that are now officially classified as alive. Freedom Fighter 57, nice to see you here tonight. Cases produced by the flawed PCR test that even the CDC finally admits is flawed. Yes. I don't know what that number of positive cases, whether that was used with that test, because there are other tests. And the CDC said earlier that they were suggesting that they use these other tests. So I don't know which tests have been used. All I can go off of is, the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Health Department website. It may turn out that, in point of fact, there are a fewer number of people who are classified as having the virus, which means people classified as recovered also ought to go down because some of them won't have had the virus. I don't know exactly what to make of it. Don't like it. But as you say, the CDC has admitted that at least one of the tests that they use to discover whether or not you have the virus is flawed, and they're pulling it in December. Why are they pulling it in December? If it's flawed, pull it now. Drop a deuce. Hey, how's it going? And if you want false positives, then bump up the times. It is beyond 35. Yeah, I know. These statistics now, it's hard to tell how meaningful they are. All I can go is by the numbers, and it still is not anything that's a big deal in Lancaster County, not really. The total number of completed vaccinations is now at 173,050, which is up 3,002 from 2 weeks ago. That's a good number, I guess. The percentage of the population now that has been vaccinated, considered totally vaccinated, is at 53.375%, which is up 0.926% from 2 weeks ago. This is really turning statistically insignificant. You've got less than 1%. This has been going down and down. It's less than 1%. If you look at, charts on that website, they have some good ones, of when we had, our big spike and started to level off. It was before the vaccine was available. And looking at our numbers, if you just look at how this thing has been going down, I don't think that the vaccine has the slightest impact in our area whatsoever. Deaths as a percentage of confirmed cases is now at 0.753%, which, believe it or not, because of the number of people who've recovered and all that, it's down 0.004% from last week. But again, this is still statistically identical for months, and it's, you're getting down to stuff that's really statistically insignificant. Deaths as a percentage of the population is now at 0.746%. Had to go to 4 decimal places to get to this, but it is now up 0.0006%, 6% from 2 weeks ago. It is statistically identical since the pandemic started. There's been no real change, and it's just flat, almost to nothing. I mean, you're talking about less than 1% increase. Interestingly enough, the total number of tests in Lancaster County, that's not on my chart, is 593,788. And we only have a population of a little over 324,000. That's so weird. But they do list the total number of individuals tested, which is not 195,360. So it's just, if you run the math, that means statistically anyway, each of the people who have the test done would have had it done 3 times. Now, obviously, that's not happening. You have a lot of people that are going to test negative, and so they're not going to have a second test. But people who test positive, the ones that are testing positive, you got to assume that I don't know how many times they've been tested. There's a bunch of people who are getting more than one test that, eventually test out as negative. I don't know what it means, but there's a lot of testing going on. So that's the information for at least one of my viewers who is local, so that they can know what our actual statistics are. Had one local viewer who said she asked her husband. He thought the number of deaths was in the thousands. It's only 242. Less than half the number of people who died of heart disease in only 1 year, in 2019. Now I have to talk about something that's a little difficult to talk about. I'm amazed because I never thought I would have to talk about this regarding the United States. Now you're going to have to bear with me because of the way my back is killing me. I really didn't prepare anything about this. I've just got a few, little notes, but I'm going to go on at some length about it. We are now seeing on social media blue check-marked journalists suggesting things like, if you're not vaccinated, you should lose your health insurance. Oh my God. And blue check marks are saying this. But worse than that, private individuals, multiple ones in my Twitter stream, for example, my Facebook stream, are suggesting that people who have not been vaccinated should be sent to detention camps. This is a very dark place. Drop of Truth says since March last year, a number of CV deaths is 923. Yeah, as where you are in, he's down in Australia. And as of June 28, 2021, 272 people have died after receiving the jab in Australia. Only 4 people have died from the virus since June 28th. Yeah, they don't really give you that information about the virus here. It's good in terms of what I give out, but there's a lot of data that's lacking with regards to that. Freedom Fighter 57 says the people who took the test probably took the test many, many times. Yeah. Because most of Lancaster County residents, have never taken the test. Yeah. They suggest it's like I think it was 60% of the populace. I don't know. I don't know. It's just really hard to tell what that means. Anyhow, let me do a reload on something here so that I can make sure on the Facebook side I can see if anybody comments there. Okay, well, you dork. Sorry, give me a second. Facebook is weird. Okay, Facebook. There we go. Okay, one more. Back button, forward button. Facebook is being weird. I'm probably eating up a lot of my bandwidth. Okay, there I am. Let me go to where I've got some. I'll mute you. Okay, now I can see my Facebook comments if anybody's doing it. Anyway, we got into this very, very dark place. Less than a year ago now. The beautiful Gina Carano, who is always on the short list for me of being the next ex-Mrs. Stone, provided she gets a taste for older men in somewhat questionable physical condition. But she was attempted to be canceled, lost her job with Disney because she had the temerity to point out that what got the Nazis to the point where it was okay for them to cart people off to concentration camps and kill them was a sustained propaganda campaign in advance of that, that would cause the people of Germany to hate a segment of their population so that when they're taken away, it's okay. They hated them in the first place. Drop of truth is saying in the UK and US, some states, if you want to continue to work without being jabbed, you must get the PCR tests. Yes, that's true. Tulsi Gabbard would be jealous. Tulsi Gabbard is also somebody who's on my short list. If they want to fight over me, I really have no problem. They can have a knockdown, drag out, and whomever wins, I will take. Division Bell, Marshall says, yes, exactly. Freedom Fighter says, to drop a truth, doing my best to not have my head explode, navigating all this craziness. Yeah. Anyway, Gina Carano pointed that out, and they wanted to cancel her for that because they said, oh, you're saying that, the Republicans are the right, or because the left is, pretty hate-filled at this point. You're saying, oh, the Republicans are just like, the Jews. And no, that's not what she was saying. She was saying that what happened before that was a propaganda campaign to make the German people hate the Jews. Well, here we are now, and we're having the same exact thing happen. And it's been going on because there was a build-up to this. It didn't just happen overnight that people decided to say this. This happened over a long period of time. And it was, in fact, a propaganda campaign, a successful propaganda campaign. And it was largely the press. Now, if you're with my show for any length of time, that I have a saying that I know it's mine because it's on my IMDb page, which, by the way, don't go and look at that. I'm looking at getting some actual headshots and stuff down because the one that's there of me looks awful. And my saying is, nothing you see in the press is real. Nothing. And that is an accurate statement. I have been debunking the press for 46 years now. And it's at a point where it happens automatically in my head that I look for stuff. My general theory is that when you take away all of the opinion, the emotionally loaded language, and the filler, your average press article from any source, and it doesn't matter what it is, if you think it's trustworthy, it's not. But I could prove one of three things: that the event being reported never happened, that it didn't happen as reported, or that if you strip off all of that stuff, you are left with very little facts. Marshall said, Drop of Truth says, average album by Pink Floyd. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a Pink Floyd guy. I'm somebody who listens to film soundtracks more than anything else. Anyhow, Gina was, they attempted to cancel her for it. They definitely got Disney to kick her out. But that's what we're seeing here. And it didn't just happen all at once. So basically for the benefit of posterity, because when this is all over and said and done, whatever happens, my theory is that it looks, it's like doing the Lewis and Clark expedition, right? In that expedition, both Lewis and Clark kept very detailed diaries, and they encouraged anybody on the expedition, regardless of how literate they might have been, to also keep diaries. And as a result, there is that whole period of time in which Native Americans were existing in the upper Great Plains and West that is totally lost to history now, was something that was actually documented. So when I do some of this stuff, what I'm trying to do is ultimately, hopefully for posterity, somebody might dig this up and see how the hell we got here. Let's see. Drop 2 says, curiously, Edward Longshanks brought in an edict to expel all the Jews from Britain. Yeah, it's never been just Germany. Other countries had that too. He also made them wear yellow badges. Where did the Nazis get their ideas? Yeah, all the Nazis did was a very concentrated campaign. But it's not like it hadn't happened before in other countries. So to my way of thinking, here's how we got here. Donald Trump was elected. That was the first thing. It drove the left completely insane. And I should point out at the beginning of this that I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am a libertarian who doesn't really have that much invested in either party. But I can tell, just from looking at this stuff, what happened was Donald Trump got elected, and the left, for some reason that I still cannot figure out, went completely bonkers. Now, it may be how Trump comported himself on social media, because I think a lot of the reason that Trump got elected that time was due to social media. He used it very, very effectively. But he was big, he was bombastic, he was self-aggrandizing, and he was kind of rude. And up to that point, Donald Trump was a very different kind of president in that respect. Up to that point and afterwards, any sort of criticism that a president gets, they just ignore it. They never push back. And by the time Trump was ready for re-election, the Republicans had largely had it with that. They felt like, and there's something to be said for it, they felt like no president, no representative was really pushing back on what they felt was falsehoods. They felt like they were sort of victimized and nobody was pushing for them. So that's part of the reason that Trump was very, very popular. You know, he tried to keep his campaign promises, which is very bizarre, but also he was out there talking and saying that this is wrong, that you people are completely misreading the situation. And so his getting elected drove them completely insane. You know, you've seen the videos of people screaming at his inauguration and stuff like that. It's total insanity. They literally went insane. Freedom Fighter 57 says the local press is pushing this local lady who did not get jabbed, got COVID and is now, said the name of it, and is now promoting the jab, but she was surrounded by jabbed people at home. I think shedding had something to do with it. To be honest, I haven't kept up with the local press at all. Nothing you see in the press is real. So why? Why? So anyway, the left just went completely insane, and they just wouldn't accept Donald Trump as their president. They felt like it should have been Hillary, and they went nuts. And then they spent the next 4 years attempting to get Trump out of office or have him discredited in one way or another. And it failed every single time. And any time some kind of thing came up where someone was critical of Trump, he pushed back in a major way. And his supporters loved that. The people on the right really loved that somebody was for them finally pushing back after decades of the left saying horrible things about the right that were totally wrong. But his being bombastic and self-aggrandizing to some extent led to his voters also being self-aggrandizing and very loud on social media, and sometimes rude. Because Trump was being rude, it was seen as, okay, it's okay for me to be rude. Not to say that they caused rudeness on social media or anything like that. Social media was a cesspool long before and still is. But it did give them the okay to kind of do that. So you got a little more polarized. And beyond that, the left just couldn't deal with it. Any time that they thought they had him, he got out. I'm not even going to talk about whether or not it was accurate or not, because I think sometimes the left was going insane for no reason. But I said at the time, we have half our populace that is now mentally ill. And what happens when they get in power after that, or what happens when the right is mentally ill? And some of the right are. They have conspiracy theories. I mean, Q, for God's sake, QAnon? That was insane from the start, thinking that anything like that was ever going to happen. And they're still doing it. They're saying, oh, he's eventually going to be reinstated. No, he's not. You could find out that the entire election was a sham, and he still isn't, because that would be horrifying in terms of politics. That's not going to happen. He might get reelected next time, but he might get elected again, next time, but it's not going to happen that way. So you got this large percentage of our population that's now totally mentally ill. And the left in particular are horrible about this, because they couldn't accept this, because they had to say, and the press was being very horrifying. They were coming down on Trump with stuff that wasn't true. It was total fabrications. I found myself a libertarian in position on this show of having to occasionally defend Trump, despite the fact that I wasn't all that thrilled with him necessarily as a libertarian, but he was being jumped on for no reason. It was just propaganda. And there was so much propaganda that eventually got to the point where it was racial. The left decided that the right were horrible, racist, sexist, homophobes, take your pick. And the press went with that. Now, I have to tell you, that doesn't make any damn sense. This country, by a wide margin, elected a black man to the presidency twice. He got 2 terms. That means 2 federal elections, he was elected by a plurality of the voters, a good margin. So how can that means that not only the left were voting for him, some people on the right were voting for him for whatever reason. So you have to say to yourself, is it rational that these people who supported a black president just because Trump was elected suddenly became racist, sexist, homophobic monsters? And the whole Nazi thing where they were calling them Nazis is insane. I've said before, I live in the city that for many years was the headquarters of the American Nazi Party. And that headquarters consisted of one old geezer who was spitting out hate literature to an ever-decreasing populace. And he got occasionally speaking gigs at the University of Nebraska while I was there. It was about a 15-minute walk from where he lived to the campus. And where he lived, by the way, that was the headquarters. It was a broken-down, ramshackle POS house that on occasion I would walk past on my way to school, high school. And if we took any notice of him at all, we would point and just laugh. He was an irrelevant guy, and all the Nazis are very small. He got speaking gigs at the University of Nebraska while I was there. And what we would do, we would not go around protesting or anything like that. We just ignore him, because that's all he's worth. And the only people who would come to his stupid lectures were basically 3 kinds. Psych majors who wanted to see what a real psychopath looked like. Sociology majors who wanted to see what a real Nazi looked like, because he was a real Nazi. And the people who were in journalism, particularly the ones who were doing the student newspaper, because they would have stories about him that never got the front page. They would get the back page, because he wasn't worth talking about. And I have seen pictures of real Nazi rallies, like a dozen people show up. They're just not. Let's see. History that is taught, it lacks the high in that word. Yes, it does. Let's see. Freedom Fighters laughing. Jeanette, nice to see you. Yeah, happy to give out the numbers. Great. You're one of my local viewers. Happy to hand them out. Anyhow, so we got to this point where the press was doing nothing but propagandizing. They spent 4 years doing it. 4 years telling roughly half of your fellow countrymen that the other half was racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever, transphobic monsters. People who wanted to kill them. And that was just BS. It was total propaganda. So now we get to Biden being elected and his handling of the virus, because he was handling the tail end of it. Trump dealt with most of it, and Trump, by the way, got a vaccine and suggested other people do it. So people on the left who are saying that he wouldn't do that if he was president, clearly he would, because he did it while he was president. So we have Biden coming in, and we have this massive, totally successful propaganda campaign going on. And what's happened is the people who have had the vaccine, which are largely on the left, because what this has done has given total control of your body over to your rulers, not your representatives, your rulers. Now they have total control of your body. They really do. This is something that started with prohibition of alcohol in the 1930s, was exacerbated by prohibition of drugs all the way through my entire life, because that is saying you do not have the right to put certain chemicals in your body. As a libertarian, I say, yes, you do. If you're so dumb that you put enough of in you to get addicted or kill yourself, it's very unfortunate. If it happened to a friend or family member of mine, I would certainly try to get them, the help that they need so they weren't addicted or something like that. But you still have the right to put bleach, inject bleach into your bloodstream if you want to. You have to have total control of your body, or you don't have any slavery without it. And what people did, frankly, was gleefully hand over total control of their bodies to their rulers. Now, these people are not normal people. They are, in fact, really, by the dictionary definition, power-mad, sociopathic narcissist. Inside of each and every one of them is a tiny little emperor of the galaxy from Star Wars sitting on their shoulder going, "Unlimited power!" And guess what? You just gave them unlimited power. You handed over control of your body, and you're never going to get it back. It's the reason that the CDC made this determination recently about how putting people who've been vaccinated need to put their masks back on. Because I have said over and over, the point of this, when they say, when it's safe from government, is never. You will never get this back. It will be one long string of things until people are used to government constantly interfering in the control of their bodies. It's like the generation or two that came during and after 9/11 who now believe that they have no rights on aircraft or in airports. That was not the case prior to 9/11. We did have rights. Up until the 1980s, we could carry a gun on it. On an airplane. And the only thing that would be said by anyone is if you had a long gun, the flight attendant might ask you if you wanted to put it up front where it wouldn't get hurt. So we trained two entire generations that they have no rights on airports or in airplanes. And now we are going to get an entire generation or more who are comfortable with the notion that they should always do what their government says if there's a pandemic. They're going to get used to constantly wearing masks, constantly having their lives under scrutiny because it's normal for them. It's going to come out that this is a normal thing from generations on because because I didn't, you have handed over total control of your body to your rulers. And rule they will. You will never get it back. It looked like we were going to get it back this time. Guess what? We got some variants, so you can't get it back. Going over here, looking at my things here. Marshall says it's worse than that, Bill. Not only are people saying that you can't put something in your own body, they're also saying you must put something in your own body. Well, we handed total control of our bodies over to our rulers. Of course they're going to do that. They have total control. Drop 2 says Pfizer just predicted $45.7 billion profit for the year. Not sure if that's U.S. or Australia dollars. Still think they're focused on protecting the people. They never were. They're power-mad, sociopathic narcissists whom you just gave control of your body, total control of your body, over to them. And they're going to use that because they are power-mad, sociopathic narcissists. Marshall says also, but the damage that the virus response has cost the economy, oh yeah, their only choice is to keep the fear up so they can keep monetizing the debt that they're building up. Well, we're headed to a socialist, if not an outright communist society now. We'll be lucky if it doesn't happen during the Biden administration while he's there. We'll be very lucky if it doesn't. Because I don't think Biden or Kamala Harris, who's actually going to be president by the end, because you cannot look at Biden and not say that there's a guy who's suffering from dementia, and he will eventually, they'll have to use the 25th Amendment. He is suffering from dementia. Obviously, if you look at, footage of him when he was a senator, he's clear, he's succinct, he can give out his ideas, and now he's stammering, he stutters, he holds on, and sometimes comes out with answers that make no damn sense. If you watch that CNN town hall meeting from a couple of weeks ago, oh my God, he was completely out in the twilight zone sometimes, and if Trump had been out in the twilight zone like that, you can imagine the press would be all over him. But this press ignored it or tried to play it differently. Yes, they're considering a third booster jab. This will never end. Of course it won't. We've handed total control of our bodies over to our rulers, and they're going to keep it. This will never end. When it's safe means never. Freedom Fighter 57, it'll go on until the tyrants reach their goal of 599 million people living on Earth, as spelled out, written in stone on the Georgia guidelines. I don't know about that. You'd have to kill a lot of people. China, you'd have to kill roughly 2 billion people to get it down to that number. You're only talking about twice the population of the United States. I don't think that's going to happen, aside from, if the crap hits the fan, then all bets are off. People in the cities will starve. But I don't think they'd intentionally do that. This is just a thing where they've got power over you. They own your body. You are a slave. It's that simple. You're a slave now. And Drop 2 says Biden will be deposed before Christmas. Maybe, I'm not sure. What's 99 million among friends? Yeah, Drop 2 is saying it's 500 million. Jeanette says, I never gave control over my body and never have. Well, that's where we get into, I'm going to get to where we are now. So we have this propaganda machine, and it has been anti-Trump since forever. It has now convinced half the populace that the other half are racist, homophobic monsters. And now it has gone after the right because they're making it look as if the right are the ones who are not getting the vaccine. And I think statistically, if you looked at it, that's probably right. When I look at, the people in my Facebook and Twitter feeds, when they talk about not having had the virus, they're more on the right. And of course, the left already hates the right. And I mean hates them viscerally, deep down, detests them in a way that I really can't understand. I can't understand it because I can't feel it. But I can tell from the way they talk, from the way they act, that they really, really hate them. And they were already racist, homophobic, sexist monsters to start with. So now they're racist, homophobic, sexist monsters who are spreading the virus. They are the ones, they have been convinced by propaganda. The right are the ones who are now propagating this virus. They are the ones who are causing masks because they've just said, the CDC, that people who have been vaccinated need to wear the masks. And it's not for the reason that you think. When you go drill down, you find out that the reason they did that was because they were finding that people that had already had the vaccine are getting variants now because the vaccine doesn't. It's a virus. It mutates. That's just what viruses do. It's why we can't get rid of the common cold. The common cold virus that I have right now is totally different genetically than the common cold virus. I mean, it has some stuff in common because the symptoms are common. But if you look at the genetics, it'd be totally different than it was 100 years ago because it is constantly mutating. If somebody has that and I get it, it's going to mutate some in me so that I can reinfect the people around me. And that's what happens with flu virus. That's how we get flu virus. This one was, in all probability, manufactured in a laboratory. But regardless, it's going to mutate. And what you see with people who have already had the vaccine is probably the virus getting into them, not being able to do its thing, and mutating in them. So they're saying keep the masks on so that you people who probably have a mutated form of the virus now don't spread it out to everybody else. But that's not what the left sees. The left sees the right as being intransigent and not taking this vaccine that is necessary. And because they're not taking the vaccine, that means they are the ones infecting everyone else. Drop 2 says you'd have to kill 95% of the world's population to get it down to 500 million. That's true. They're going after Christians too, but that's always happened. Yes, Christians are to some extent, gone after nowadays. You can't go after Muslims. That's verboten. But Christians, yes. It's ridiculous. Marshall says that touchstone for propaganda is that there are zero actual evidence ever presented. It's all shadowy, anonymous, and illogical. Yes, in my social media, when they say, oh, it's people who haven't been vaccinated, they're all dying. I'm like, okay, source, please. Give me a source for that. I hear it all the time, but I don't actually see a source for it. When we look at that website that shows you, and it's a great website. It is a really good website. I've gone to other states and other counties. Well, this is, you can see, drill down for any given county in Nebraska. But I've gone to other states, and they don't have this level of nice graphical stuff with really good charts that you can look at. I don't put them up because there's too many. It's a really good website that way. Definitely go look at it. We can't tell that stuff. It doesn't say anything about whether the fatalities are people that have had the vaccine or not. We don't know. All we have is a press telling us that and feeding the idea that the right whom the left have viscerally hated deep down in the pits of their souls, have viscerally hated in a way that I can't understand as a libertarian. I don't agree with policies on the left. I don't agree with policies on the right. There's always some that I agree with on both sides, but in general, we're not on the same page. But I don't hate them. My general assumption with both sides is that they think they're doing something that's going to help. Both sides are wrong, with right now the left being wrong more than the right, but they still think that they're doing it for altruistic reasons. When we get down to the man in the street, that's what's happening. When you get up in the levels of government, it's power-mad sociopathic narcissists looking to control your life 100%. Lies, propaganda, and total BS. Drop 2 says, well, that's all the press has ever been. It's really all it's ever been. You go back to the Spanish-American War, that was largely fed by a propaganda campaign. And then if you go back even further, if you look historically at what was being published around the time of the American Revolution, you're going to find they pushed the truth a little bit because they wanted to make sure that they were going to get people on their side. So they made the British look worse than they actually were, if you look at the history of it. I'm quite certain if you go back to ancient Egypt, they were not carving hieroglyphs that, talked about anybody except the kings and queens. And those, I'm sure, you're not going to get a slave carving hieroglyphs that's going to say something negative about the people that own them. I'm sure if you go way back in time, cave paintings, if you really were around then to see what the paintings were about, I have a suspicion they'd be about the chief of the tribe and not down on the lower level. The press has never been accurate. They can't be accurate if they try. And what they discovered over the last 4 years is that they can, in fact, successfully propagandize an entire half of the population. They can successfully do it, and they've done it more than once. Freedom Fighter 57 says, I bet there are more people like yourself in the middle, not the left or the right, than either side. Very possibly, yes. But again, it's a propaganda campaign that makes people who are even independent, not left or right, say, oh, yeah, the right, they're killing people. That's where we're at. The propaganda is now saying the right is killing people. Let's see. Marshall says the common cold is also a virus I can't talk about. And it's where are you again? You moved up. A SARS variant, yes. Johnny Arcade says the CDC finally admitted that the PCR tests can't decipher between cold and influenza. Yes, that they've in December they're going to pull that test. December? If they know it's no good, why not pull it right now? To be fair, they've actually known this for a while and have and there's more than one test for this, and they've been suggesting that use something else. But I don't know what percentage are using the test that's discredited and what. There's no way to tell. We don't know. We'd have to get all those people, this 100,000, some 190, I think, thousand people, 60% of the population, to go back and take tests again with the new test, whatever, that doesn't include that one, to see if it was accurate. And that's not going to happen. Drop 2 says, germ theory and virus theory are still theories, never proven. Yeah, I mean, anything's a theory. There can always be better information that comes along later. It'll blow it out of the water, but it's the best we can do in any given time. Drop 2 says, you blame Louis Pasteur. Yeah, and Jonas Salk. Yeah. Marshall says, remember that the old miniseries V, the first thing they did was to divide the scientists out and cause hatred toward them because they were the biggest threat to the invaders. Yes, and that's what's happening here. Drop 2 says, divide and conquer, a Jesuit axiom. Drop 2 also says, the ends justify the means, another Jesuit axiom. I don't know that this necessarily has anything to do with any one religion or belief system. I think you're just looking at people in government who really are. You know, a lot of people will hear me say this and go, it's not that bad. No, it's that bad. They are, honestly, power mad, sociopathic narcissists. And what has been given to them over this is control of a giant segment of the population. Just a giant segment. Even people like myself who will not do it, who will push back anytime there's a mask requirement, which fortunately we haven't seen in Lincoln, Nebraska for some time now. They rescinded it. But I have no doubt, because of the CDC thing, that they're going to put it in place somewhere again. So they have made the left hate and detest the right viscerally, really bad. They have done a long-term propaganda campaign that was successful. What people need to realize, what the right particularly needs to realize, is that this was a propaganda campaign that was successful. You can't deal with reality until you get that through your heads. You need to take a look at how that propaganda campaign was held and figure out a way to fight the way that was held. You can't say to yourself, I'm just going to, I'm going to do something that's going to go against the narrative. That's not possible. They won. They actually won. And you need to understand that if you're going to go forward, because you need to figure out how they won and try to counteract that. Not push back at them now because they won. You have to push back in a way that's going to keep them from winning in the future. Johnny Arcade said they should still be testing for antibodies. Anything else is a waste. Yeah, and some of the tests do statistical analysis rather than actually checking in the bloodstream. Bizarre. I mean, I know people who will say, the statistics are better than that. No, as a computer scientist, I want to see real evidence, Marshall says, next time I come on your show, yes, you may use the camera, but have on a Guy Fawkes mask. Yeah, go for it. For safety of the virus, of course. Your MacBook is closer than 6 feet from me. I might be infected. So anyhow, that's where we are. A successful propaganda campaign, and an ongoing one, to make people believe that there are people who do not get this vaccine, who are all on the right. Probably they'll say the alt-right, which I don't even know what the hell means, really. But they're going to say it's on the right. And so now we have people, because they hated the right in the first place, and journalists, people who did this propaganda campaign, coming out and saying that people like me should not have our health insurance because we didn't get this. And other people who take that and say, okay, game on. The people who don't get the virus, who don't get the vaccine, we should just completely segregate them, because they're the ones who are causing the problem. Because nobody wants all these masks. Everybody is fed up to about here. So, when they're given another mask order, they want to know who to blame. Me, because I haven't had the vaccine. The right, whom they think are intransigent and have not had the vaccine, they're all causing these variants to spread. They are causing deaths. Therefore, they should be segregated out of society in some kind of detention facility. Guys, that's exactly what they did with the Jews. I'm sorry to have to go Hitler on you, but that's what they did. They made people hate this segment of their population so much that they were like, yeah, take them the hell out of here. They're the problem. Get them out. And that's where we are right now. All of that history for the last 5 or so years brings us to the point where people are saying it's and not ironically and not sardonically and not in a comedic way and all, saying, okay, we should just take them and send them to detention facilities. I'm sorry, guys. You're falling prey to exactly what the German population fell prey to. And when I push back on social media about this, I just say, oh, okay, do you think we should just, send them off to ovens and gas chambers? That'll solve the problem permanently. And very few people push back on that. They just let it sit there without making any comment and without putting a heart or anything like that on it. But nobody pushes back. Even if I'm acting like I'm being truthful and just saying, why go that route? Just kill them. They're the problem. Kill them. Nobody pushes back. It's amazing to me. Dropper 2 says, wait until the fall and winter flu season hit the USA. But again, this is all for the purpose in terms of government. You've got people who are power mad, sociopathic, narcissists, and they will take any excuse to strip you of any rights that you have. And you handed it over to them. I mean, the left particularly handed it over to them because the left has this bizarre delusion that government is out there to help them. No, not really. They're out to acquire and maintain as much personal power as they possibly can, using any means necessary, possibly including murder. I don't know that for sure, but there's some stuff that occasionally looks really shady. They're there to acquire and maintain as much personal power as possible. They're not there to help you. So they're under the impression that, a socialist or communist state would help everyone, and, the right's sitting in the way. Plus now the right is spreading this virus, and so we need to cart them off. And nobody pushes back when I said go the further. And they don't understand that where we're at right now, where we're headed right now in this very dark place, is exactly where Germany went with the Jews. I'm not saying that the right or people like me are not getting the vaccine are the Jews yet. I'm saying that the conditions are exactly the same. Propaganda campaign waged by the press, who are horrifying. They're not just sycophants to the left. They waged a successful propaganda campaign. They're in the middle of a successful propaganda campaign right now. And so they are largely the ones to blame for this, for handing over control of your body, total 100% control of your body, over to these power-mad sociopathic narcissists. Let's see. Thank you, Jeanette, for hitting the like button. Always, please like, sub, hit the notification bell, and share me on social media because it's how I grow. Marshall says, funny, you believe the collectivist mindset is more dangerous virus than this one. Yes, I agree. Does that mean we can put them all in California and toss away the key? Yeah, well, not really, but I have occasionally suggested we should go escape from LA on them. Put up nice big walls and kill anybody that tries to get out of California, and if we find some more communists, throw them in. But no, in all reality, I wouldn't want to do that. You just want to change their minds. And if we actually get the socialist government that they want, or the communist dictatorship, they will find out pretty soon that it was a bad idea. They may well go there. We may well go there. And if so, they'll find out it was a very bad idea. Especially when you're in the city, a communist socialist state will interrupt the food supply lines, and people in the cities will starve. Just all there is to it. Freedom Fighter 57 says their agenda is absolutely demonic. Yeah, you could certainly say that. Again, they have this emperor of the galaxy sitting on their shoulders screaming, unlimited power! And that really isn't any kind of overblown case. In them is a power-mad sociopathic narcissist trying to acquire and maintain as much personal power for as long as they can. They aren't normal people. They really are not. They're not like you and me and the average person on the street. They are psychologically screwed up. They don't care about you at all. And if they get the socialist nation that they want, they're going to discover that it was a very, very bad idea. Drop Tooth is saying down in Australia, Sky News Australia report, quote, Twitter is ripping into Joe Biden's CNN town hall appearance only where the president was seen rambling or whether or not there's a man on the moon. Oh, God, that town hall, I couldn't watch it. For me, it was just like, who cares? But when I've seen some of it while I do watch it, oh my God. As someone who has close family members suffering from Alzheimer's, I don't wish it on anybody. I wouldn't wish it on the president. But it's obvious. It's obvious. People I know are at a point where, say, they have problems with short and long-term memory, but when they're in the moment, they're lucid. They just don't remember things right. There are so many times Biden isn't even lucid. Someone will ask him a question, he'll start rambling on about something that doesn't make any sense and come up with sentences that don't make any sense. And the Australians, unlike the United States, actually get it. Your press is actually showing some of this and going after him. Our press is covering for him. Nothing you see in the press is real. Nothing. Marshall says you can vote yourself in, but you have to shoot your way out. That's the way it is with socialism and communism. And, it's happening right now in Cuba, but the press is not doing what you would think their job is, which is sending people down there surreptitiously, dressed, going undercover and actually reporting what's going on the ground. They're not doing that. So we're not seeing exactly what's happening down there. And I'm sure it's bad. In a communist dictatorship, if you start mouthing off too much, they just kill you. And I don't know where they are at that because the press isn't reporting it. And I think the press isn't reporting it because it would be obvious that this communist socialist idea is bad, okay? Because they want it here. For some bizarre reason, the press wants to hand over all their rights to government. They'd be the first ones to suffer. Really, they would. So, that's how we got here. 5 years worth of successful propaganda campaigns that made half of the nation viscerally hate the other half. Blame them now for a virus that they really have no particular part in spreading. From what the CDC said, if you take them at their word, and I think this is probably true, the people who have had the vaccine are getting this variant, and they are the ones propagating it, which is why they say put the mask on so you're not, breathing out and giving people the virus. But the people on the left say, no, it's the right. It's who has done this. They are racist, homophobic monsters who are now murdering people. That's what the propaganda campaign says. Freedom Fighter 57 says sometimes Biden just blurts out whatever's on his mind, like the other day when he mentions kids drinking blood. Yeah, he's read some of the particularly crazy stuff out there, that Alex Jones was pushing about a pizzeria being involved with pedophiles and, this concoction that they thought would make them immortal. Man, it's just nonsense. It's crazy. But the number of people who actually believe that in this country has got to be just a tiny handful. So for him to bring them up at all doesn't make any sense. The other day when he was coming off of Marine One, and I saw it going around on social media where he just said something that sounded like total gibberish. And I watched the whole thing in context. Him coming to the press, them asking him questions, and him coming up with a rational, if, totally slip around the answer question. The first thing he said just sounded like my butt's been wiped. I don't think he was actually saying that. I don't know what he was saying in real life. It caused the press corps to giggle. I mean, he said this, and they all they asked the question. He goes, and they giggled over here, as opposed to right now, President said something totally freaking incomprehensible. Add it to the list. But he's off in this notion that the right actually believes some of this crazy crap, and they don't really believe it. But he's going to push that because it keeps the narrative going that the right is insane and they are responsible for spreading this virus. I mean, how often did he say, you get the vaccine, you're done, you won't ever get it? Well, turns out that's wrong. I could never figure that out about the vaccine. I mean, I understand that vaccines for, the flu are a little bit different than, like vaccine for chickenpox. Vaccine for chickenpox puts in a small amount of, dead virus so that your own body makes the antibodies for them, and thereby having the antibodies in your body, you'll probably never get it again, or it'll be a long time. So I get that. The flu vaccine is not the same in that way. But if it's not doing anything for you, if it's really not changing the likelihood that you'll get this, because they've shown that people who have had the vaccine can get this again, and if it means that it's like mutating in your own body and you breathing it out is going to make things worse, then what good is the vaccine? It doesn't make any damn sense to me. Truth says there's plenty of TikTok videos from Cuba. That's bizarre. TikTok is owned by... I'll take a look there, because I have a TikTok account. I didn't want to make one, really, because TikTok is a Chinese service, and I didn't want that anything I'm on to be held by the communists, really. I'm amazed that they're letting that stuff out. They would have the ability to stop stuff coming in for like that. And it's certainly bad PR for the Chinese if another communist dictatorship is failing, and it's bad. I'll take a look at that. I finally got an account on TikTok, and supposedly the equipment that I use for multiple streams right now should work with TikTok. I haven't experimented with it yet. I really didn't want to, because I've seen enough crazy come out of TikTok, or girls that are, just taking off their clothes for money, just this short of, sex cam girls. And it looks, and again, it's Chinese, and it appears to leak data like mad out of your smartphone to the Chinese. So I didn't want to get one, but eventually broke down because it's got a massive user base. The size of Twitter are bigger. It's massive. So I kind of feel like I got to go on there so that I get the eyes. Let's see. Marshall says, Dear Press, keep your opinions to yourself and give us documented facts and public sources, or shut the hell up. You're asking something of the press that it has never been. The press, I'm sure that if we really had the opportunity, when Walter Cronkite, known as the most trusted man in America, if I had the ability to look at him and what he was saying and the ability to research behind it as I do now because of the internet, I would find that Walter Cronkite was lying out his ass. These people have never been trustworthy. You're asking too much. They never have been. The best you can do, as I've said many times, is watch live streams on the ground at the time it's happening, where they just point their cameras and shut up. Don't give anything out. You just watching and making your own interpretation and coming to your own conclusions. But that's the best thing you can do. The press will never, ever accurately tell the facts. It doesn't matter what it is. Jeanette Bloom is saying, yes, well said, Marshall. Again, asking too much of it. Drop it says Comet Pizza, adrenochrome, it's a diversion. Well, that Comet Pizza thing was crazy. It was obviously crazy. The whole notion was just nuts. But because that happened with a tiny amount of people, some of whom are probably still dumb enough to think it's real, that gives him the opportunity to paint the right as evil and stupid, when really very few people actually bought into that. Marcia says, half the real news is when he says something that actually makes sense. Yeah. Again, it's weird because, I've watched footage of him back when he was a senator, 10, 15 years ago, and he's totally lucid. The difference is obvious. I don't know how anybody can say, look at that and say anything other. Guy has dementia. I can't say it's Alzheimer's, but you can tell he's not putting two and two together when he's in front of people. And that wasn't a problem for him 10 or 15 years ago. Any time that he was a senator, that was not a problem for him. He was perfectly lucid. I mean, he'd say stuff that, you wouldn't really necessarily agree with. I wouldn't. But he was totally lucid about it. He wouldn't trail off. He wouldn't say things that didn't make sense. He wouldn't have that look in his eye. It's almost a deer in the headlight look that he does when he's talking, blah, 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 answer a question. Yeah, well, it's like, he looks down is what he does. He looks down. Well, you know what I mean. He didn't used to do that. Drop 2 says Marshall when that was. Drop 2 says TikTok type Bill. Oh, okay, I'll take a look at that. I can say I'll hunt around. Johnny Arcade says they're making promises about an untested vaccine. They don't even know if it won't kill people yet. The reason that I'm not taking it is medical, and that's because I'm on a bunch of medications. One of them I'm taking for its off-brand effects. It's the one that I can't. It's what I call this keep me sane medication. I have this severe anxiety disorder. It's the medication that really quells that, but it's being used for what's called off-label purposes. That's it. I'm taking it for its side effects, not for its intended purposes, but for its side effects. And so this virus, frankly, and my doctor agrees, my GP agrees, that until this is out, because of the way they did it, until it's out with a large population for long enough, we really don't know what its side effects are. We really don't know what its efficacy is, and now we're seeing that's true. And some people have died from it, but I don't have any stats for it in my county. They don't really publish that anywhere, so we can't really see it. I don't know if it's a tiny number. I don't know if it's big. They say it's tiny, but I haven't seen any sources that show that. Reputable, like peer-reviewed papers that I can go to the source and say, okay, here's their data. All I see is the press saying that that's the way it is, and they can't be trusted to give accurate information. Drop 2 says federal health advisor Greg Hunt, that's yours in Australia, said those who take the vax are part of the largest trial in the world. Did I use that quote? You sent a link. Yes, you did. I haven't yet sat down to make a marketing meme out of it. I was thinking about, I had it on my mind, and then this thing with my back happened, and sitting for very long to sit and make those marketing memes, even though it's not particularly difficult. For that, I would want to find a picture of him that I'd probably put on the right or left, depending which direction he happened to be looking. I do this a lot. When I do marketing memes, if I get a picture of someone, usually they're not looking straight out. They're looking to the right or the left. It has to be a high-def picture because I export these at 8K. So they're usually looking one direction or another, so I'll put them on the side where they're looking into the darkness on the rest of the page and then put their quote in there. Haven't gotten to that. Sometimes it takes a while, and I just sitting in this chair after a while is too much. Got a massage chair. That wouldn't really solve the problem. It's in the process, of repairing itself, and that's what it kind of needs to do. You just have to sit and wait for it. It's just a giant pain in the ass. What happens initially is there's this horrifying pain down here, in my case, down my right leg, almost to the knee, and then that's because it's probably pressing on one of the discs in the small of my back, or because I have arthritis there, it's just grinding together a bit. And it's not something that always goes on, so my doctor doesn't think it should be treated necessarily. And it's ordinarily, if I go to a chiropractor pretty regularly, I don't have the pain in my lower back at all. They're very good at taking care of that. In this case, they can't really. What happens is over time, the inflammation goes down and it stops pressing. And so what you feel is the pain in the leg will disappear and move up, and it becomes a pain across the lower back of your body. And eventually that gets smaller and smaller until it goes away. It's just a question of waiting. Massaging, everything won't matter. You'll send me on Twitter the link to that. Fine, that's great. I'd love to see the videos. So feel free, yes. Anyhow, speaking of which, I have been sitting here for a bit over an hour. It's almost there. Best chair, Marshall says, that you ever had was a back pain was Herman Miller Aran chair. But don't buy it new. It's around $1,400. I'm not going to get that. Might be worth getting, yeah. I once had early on when I was here, I had a gaming chair. That didn't work. You can't see it very well because it almost is green. But this is kind of the one I have. It's upright more, so it keeps me sitting like this more upright. And as long as I have the pillow in the back, it's causing my spine to kind of going away. That will help this eventually, stop doing what it's doing. Anyway, I have been at this a little over an hour, and I can tell my back is starting to hurt. I don't want it to go backwards in terms of it getting better. Oops. So I'm not going to necessarily go on about this much longer. It's just that, we're getting to this dark place, and it's because of propaganda campaigns. And I would say to the left, if you really think that the people on the right are horrible, come to me. I have an open challenge for any viewer. Get me any news story from any source. I'd rather it be print because I can put it up here behind me or beside me and talk about it. And I will debunk it for you live, cold. I will not look at it until I'm on the stream. And I will debunk it right there live for you. It can be anything. But I'd like you to see just how easy it is to prove that these people are just propagandists. And you have to then look at what they've said and say, what if this ain't true? What if everything that I've been told for the last 5 years isn't true? Think about it in those terms. What if everything that's been said in the press isn't true? And ask yourself, do we still want to put these people into detention centers over something that isn't true? Marshall says, cut it short now. Yep, don't strain it till you understand. Yes. So I am going to go ahead and cut it here because I don't want to make things worse. I want to be back next week and feel reasonably good. So I guess that's about all that I have to say about that. I would obviously love to keep the conversation going, so please leave your comments, your questions, and nasty remarks, and do feel free to share me on social media, because that is how I grow. So, thanks for watching Tales from SYL Ranch, this episode, and I'm Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.